Under the ashen skies of a frozen world where time itself seemed to shiver beneath an eternal winter. An epic confrontation was destined to unfold, a saga drawn from the ancient, blood-etched runes of Norse mythology and the seafaring lore of Viking warriors. In the bleak expanse of Jotunheim, the land of the frost giants, legends whispered of titanic beings whose very presence could turn a summer's day into a harsh, unyielding winter. It was here, amid the swirling mists and jagged ice formations, that a battle for the ages took shape, a battle pitting the raw, unbridled ferocity of nature against the primordial, unyielding might of an ancient colossus. In the far reaches of the icy north, where glaciers carved the land like the fabled runes of old and the wind carried the mournful echoes of long-forgotten sagas, there emerged an unlikely champion, a solitary polar bear. Unlike any creature of the modern wilderness, this bear was an embodiment of the wild spirit, a creature of myth and muscle whose presence in the desolate expanse stirred the soul of the ancient earth. Standing upright on its massive, powerful hind legs, it towered at nearly 3 meters in height, a living, breathing monument to nature's indomitable will. Its fur, a brilliant white that shone like the first snows of winter, rippled with each measured step. Each sinew and muscle was a testament to countless battles fought against the unforgiving elements. The creature's eyes burned with a fierce determination, an inner fire that spoke of countless winters survived and of a heritage deeply interwoven with the wild lands it roamed. The polar bear's dominion was not merely of flesh and blood, but of a deep, ancestral spirit that resonated with the ancient hymns of the North. It was a guardian of the wild, a creature revered in hushed tones by the descendants of Viking seafarers who once navigated treacherous fjords and battled monstrous foes in distant lands. In the whispered lore of those hardy souls, the bear was not simply an animal, but a symbol of resilience, a living totem representing the eternal struggle between the fleeting warmth of life and the pervasive chill of oblivion. Beyond the realm of the living, where the boundaries between myth and reality blurred into an endless dance of shadow and ice, strode a figure of gargantuan proportions, the frost giant, a being born from the raw forces of creation and as old as the frozen peaks themselves. Moved with a deliberate, earth-shaking grace that belied its titanic size, towering as high as a small building, the giant's form was carved from the very essence of winter, a living colossus whose skin was as hard and cold as the ancient glaciers that surrounded it. Its eyes, deep-set and smoldering with the ferocity of primordial storms, glowed with an icy blue light that hinted at the supernatural power seething within. Adorned with armor seemingly forged from the crystalline heart of a glacier and wielding weapons that shimmered with frost and malice, the frost giant embodied the relentless, merciless spirit of the frozen north. The legends of old told of the frost giants as beings destined to clash with the gods. Adversaries who roamed the rugged landscapes of Jotunheim with an unconquerable will to impose an everlasting winter upon the realms of men and gods alike. Their enormous forms loomed large against the horizon, dark silhouettes against the shimmering auroras, evoking both terror and awe among those who dared to traverse the wild lands. For the descendants of the Viking Age, whose sagas celebrated the valor and defiance of heroes in the face of overwhelming odds, the mere mention of a frost giant was enough to stir both dread and a fierce, emboldened pride, a reminder that even in the face of colossal adversaries, the human spirit could rise to defy fate. It was beneath a sky heavy with swirling storm clouds and a bitter wind that the paths of these two formidable forces converged. The polar bear, moving with the silent grace of a spirit born of the north, had sensed an ancient disturbance, a presence so vast and cold that even the land itself seemed to shudder in anticipation. In the distance, like a monolith carved from the nightmares of forgotten epics, the frost giant advanced. With each thunderous step, the ground quaked beneath its weight, and the very air turned to shards of icy dread. The giant's massive form was outlined against the bleak horizon, a figure of such awe-inspiring magnitude that even the elements seemed to bow in submission. As the two forces neared, the world fell into a tense, expectant silence, a moment stretched out as if by the hands of the Norns themselves, weaving the fates of all who dwelled in the realm of eternal winter. The polar bear's heart thundered in its massive chest as it prepared to confront a foe unlike any it had ever known. though it was but a single creature against an overwhelming titan. Within its blood surged the courage of countless ancestors and the wild, unyielding force of nature itself. The bear's eyes, bright with the clarity of purpose, locked onto the giant's form as it rose before it like an immovable force of destiny. In that charged moment, the ancient instincts of the polar bear took over, a primal symphony of muscle, sinew, and raw will coalescing into a single, unrelenting purpose, with a roar that reverberated across the frozen plains and echoed through the caverns of time. The bear charged forward, its powerful limbs propelling it with surprising speed and agility. The air crackled around it as it surged like a white blur across the snow, every movement a harmonious blend of precision and ferocity. It was not merely an animal in battle, it was a warrior incarnate. A creature whose very existence defied the stark cruelty of its environment. The frost giant, aware of the encroaching threat, regarded the charging beast with an expression that was as inscrutable as the ancient runes etched in its frostbitten armor. In the slow, deliberate movements characteristic of a being of its monumental stature, the giant shifted its massive weight, causing the very earth to tremble under its feet. In one colossal, sweeping gesture, it raised a mighty arm, and from the depths of its being, an instrument of icy destruction emerged, a massive weapon sculpted from frozen, otherworldly matter. This weapon, imbued with the essence of glacial fury, glinted in the wan light like a shard of the purest winter, its edges serrated as if designed to rend the very fabric of life. The collision of these titanic forces was both sudden and inevitable, as the polar bear leapt with a savagery born of nature's most unyielding laws. Its massive jaws opened wide, aiming with deadly precision for the vulnerable flank of the frost giant. The bear's teeth, honed by millennia of survival in the merciless wilderness, sought to sink into the living ice of the giant's leg, a strike that could, in the realm of mortal creatures, spell the difference between triumph and oblivion. The frost giant, however, was no mere mortal, it was a being forged in the crucible of primordial chaos. With an almost languid grace that belied its immense bulk, the giant brought down its icy weapon in a sweeping arc, intent on crushing the bear with a force that seemed capable of shattering mountains. For a moment, time itself appeared to slow as the two forces met in a clash that resonated with the echoes of ancient battles. The polar bear's ferocious bite met the impervious hide of the frost giant, and a spray of ice and frost exploded into the air, scattering crystalline fragments in every direction. The sound of impact was a cataclysmic symphony, a mingling of roars and crashes, of ancient steel and raw, untamed nature colliding in an elemental dance of destruction. The bear's claws raked at the giant's frozen leg, the pressure of its bite a desperate bid to inflict a fatal wound on a creature so vast that its very form seemed invulnerable. In response, the frost giant's weapon swung in a mighty arc, a blow that reverberated through the ice-laden ground and threatened to end the bear's valiant charge in a single, devastating strike. As the battle raged on, the frozen landscape became a canvas for the raw, uncompromising artistry of war. The snow and ice, long silent witnesses to the passage of countless ages, now bore witness to the visceral fury of a confrontation that transcended the boundaries of mortal conflict. Each movement was laden with meaning, every strike imbued with the weight of ancient oaths and long-dead sagas. The polar bear, though vastly outmatched in size by the towering frost giant, fought with the spirit of 1,000 warriors, the primal, unyielding force of nature channeled into every sinew and every roar. Its eyes, blazing with a fierce intensity that seemed to capture the very essence of the northern lights, shone with defiance in the face of insurmountable odds. The frost giant, in turn, was a creature of myth, a living embodiment of the ruthless, uncompromising power of the frozen earth. Its every move was a study in the sublime cruelty of nature. Its vast, chiseled features carved by the harsh winds and biting cold of countless winters. With each thunderous step, it drew upon a reservoir of ancient strength, a power that had been honed over millennia and tempered in the crucible of celestial battles between gods and giants. Its voice, when it finally broke the charged silence with a bellow that sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened Viking warriors, was like the roar of a glacier splitting apart, a sound that carried both the promise of destruction and the lament of a long-forgotten era. The clash between the polar bear and the frost giant became a spectacle of epic proportions. A battle that transcended the mere struggle for survival and ascended into the realm of myth and legend. The bear, in a display of unyielding tenacity, managed to drive its powerful jaws toward the massive, frost-covered leg of the giant, a strike aimed at severing a limb that might cripple the colossal adversary. For a fleeting moment, it seemed as though nature's raw force might prevail, its teeth sinking into the icy flesh, drawing forth a spray of freezing, crystalline droplets that glittered like shards of shattered hope. Yet the frost giant, with an almost preternatural resilience, roared in defiance as it swung its mighty weapon with an elegance that belied its size. The blow connected with a force that rippled through the very air, the impact sending shockwaves across the frozen plain and leaving the bear momentarily reeling in a maelstrom of pain and awe. Amidst the chaos, the swirling vortex of snow and ice, the battlefield transformed into a living tapestry of light and shadow, a vivid interplay of glacial blue hues and the stark, almost blinding white of the polar bear's fur. The very elements seemed to conspire in this grand ballet of destruction, as if the ancient gods themselves were bearing witness to this titanic struggle. In the distance, the muted chants and war cries of Viking souls echoed faintly through the frozen corridors of time, a spectral chorus that lent a sacred, almost otherworldly gravity to the unfolding conflict. Those long-dead warriors, whose sagas had been etched in runes upon the very stones of the northern lands, were invoked in the minds of the living, their legacy interwoven with every swing of the giant's arm and every desperate bite of the bear. The battle pressed on in a relentless torrent of fury and despair. The polar bear, battered but unbowed, summoned the last vestiges of its indomitable spirit. With a defiant snarl that reverberated through the icy void, it leapt once more toward the frost giant's towering form, its massive paws slashing through the cold air in a final, desperate attempt to seize victory. Time and time again, it sought out an opening, a momentary lapse in the giant's seemingly invincible defenses, aiming to sink its lethal fangs into the colossal limb. Each bite, each tear of flesh and frost, was a testament to the bear's unyielding resolve to defy the fates that sought to extinguish its flame. Yet the frost giant was no mere creature of instinct, it was a force of nature. A being whose very existence was governed by ancient laws and the relentless power of the cosmos. Drawing upon a deep well of primordial might, the giant began to unleash its own formidable arsenal. With an earth-shaking bellow, it summoned forth weapons of pure, frozen energy, mighty fists of ice and shards of crystalline frost that cascaded through the air like deadly hail. One such blow, delivered with the slow, inexorable power of a winter storm, rained down upon the polar bear, its impact shattering the silence and splintering the ice beneath. The bear was thrown backward, its momentum halted by the sheer force of the giant's assault, and for a moment it lay prone upon the snow, a solitary figure marked by the scars of an ancient war. In that fraught interlude, as the polar bear struggled to rise, the very heavens above seemed to mourn the futility and tragedy of the conflict. The wind, carrying with it the lamentations of 1,000 lost souls, swept across the barren expanse, stirring up the snow in ghostly spirals that danced like wraiths upon the frozen ground. The stark interplay of light and darkness, of hope and despair, was reflected in the eyes of the wounded beast, eyes that, even in the depths of pain, burned with a fierce, unwavering determination to rise again and defy the inexorable march of destiny. Drawing on the ancestral echoes of Viking valor, the bear mustered its remaining strength and surged to its feet, shaking off the numbing grip of frost that threatened to claim it. In that heartbeat of defiance, its eyes shone with the ferocity of ancient warriors, a glimmer of unyielding courage that recalled the epic sagas of long-departed heroes. With a roar that transcended the limits of mortal despair, it once again launched itself at the towering adversary, its savage charge a declaration of independence from the tyranny of ice and death. The frost giant, sensing the resurgence of its formidable foe, braced itself for the onslaught, its colossal form prepared to counter with the full measure of its ancient might. In a flurry of primal force and titanic resolve, the battlefield became a stage for a confrontation that defied both time and fate. The polar bear's powerful jaws sought to latch onto the massive limb of the giant, a desperate bid to bring down a foe whose very presence defied the natural order. At the same time, the frost giant swung its icy weapon with the slow, deliberate precision of an ancient god, each movement calculated to extinguish the rebellious spark of life. The ensuing clash was a kaleidoscope of motion and emotion, a dance of violence and sorrow that played out against the cold, indifferent backdrop of an endless winter. As the battle reached a crescendo, the fury of nature itself seemed to converge upon the field of combat. The skies darkened as if to herald the coming of a storm from the depths of the cosmos, and the auroras above swirled in a hypnotic display of green and blue, reflecting the spectral light of the struggle below. Every beat of the polar bear's heart, every step of the frost giant's immense strides, was imbued with the eternal spirit of the North, a spirit that had weathered the ravages of time, the cruelty of fate, and the cold indifference of a harsh, unyielding world. In the midst of this maelstrom, one could almost hear the distant strains of Viking horns and the soft, mournful chanting of ancient bards, a haunting melody that spoke of honor, sacrifice, and the undying legacy of those who had come before. The polar bear, though small in comparison to the towering frost giant, fought with the valor of 1,000 Viking warriors, each bite and every lashing swipe a defiant declaration that the wild, untamed spirit of nature would never be subdued. The giant, though seemingly impervious, revealed cracks in its frozen armor, a vulnerability born not of weakness, but of the immense, uncontrollable power that surged beneath its surface. It was in these fleeting moments that the battle transformed from a mere clash of titanic beings into a profound allegory of existence itself, a struggle between the ephemeral yet resilient flame of life and the overwhelming, relentless force of eternal winter. The polar bear, with a final, desperate surge of primal strength, managed to lock its fearsome jaws around a crucial point on the frost giant's leg, a point that, if struck true, could destabilize the behemoth and tip the balance of the ancient conflict. The giant bellowed in a voice that reverberated through the ages, a sound that was both a dirge and a challenge, as it attempted to wrench the mighty predator free with a titanic, sweeping blow of its icy weapon. The ensuing struggle was a moment suspended in time, a collision of wills and elements, a brief but profound instant where the fate of legends hung in the balance. In that heartbeat of eternity, the frozen winds whispered secrets of old, carrying with them the memory of battles fought by heroes whose names were etched in the annals of time. The polar bear's determination shone like a beacon in the encroaching gloom, a testament to the unyielding resolve of a creature that had defied the odds again and again. And though the frost giant wielded the power of the ancient ice, a force capable of reshaping the very world, the indomitable spirit of the bear refused to yield to the inevitable chill of fate. As the battle began to wane into a reluctant lull, both combatants bore the scars of their titanic struggle. The polar bear, its magnificent form marred by wounds and streaks of blood that mingled with the ever-present frost, stood as a living monument to the price of defiance. Its breath, visible in the cold air, was a steady rhythm of survival against the odds, a pulse that echoed the heartbeat of the wild north. The frost giant, though unbowed, bore deep fissures in its icy hide, a testament to the raw, untamed power of a creature that had dared to challenge the forces of nature and life itself. In the silent aftermath of the fierce encounter, as the swirling snow began to settle over a battlefield that had witnessed a duel of titanic might and spirit, the legends of that day took root in the hearts of those who revered the old ways. Viking storytellers, with voices rich in sorrow and pride, would recount the tale of the polar bear, a creature who, against all odds, dared to challenge a frost giant, and in doing so, illuminated the eternal struggle between life and the relentless cold of destiny. They spoke of the bear's ferocious bite that nearly toppled the giant's vast form, and of the giant's mighty, shattering blows that tested the very limits of mortal endurance. In hushed tones around roaring fires, they would remember the day when nature's raw, unyielding force clashed with the ancient, frozen might of the gods, a day when the wild, untamed spirit of the North was both celebrated and mourned. The saga of that fateful encounter became more than just a tale of battle. It became a living myth, a narrative woven into the very fabric of the northern lands. It was said that on nights when the aurora borealis danced with spectral light across the sky, the spirits of Viking ancestors could be heard singing the saga of the polar bear and the frost giant. Their voices, carried on the icy winds, told of a time when even the smallest among us could challenge the seemingly invincible. When the fierce heart of a lone warrior could spark hope in a land shrouded by the eternal frost. In the years that followed, as the world slowly turned and the seasons cycled in their relentless rhythm, the legacy of that monumental clash endured. Travelers and warriors alike would pause in their journeys to gaze upon the frozen plains, imagining the echoes of that epic duel, a duel that had forever altered the course of destiny in a realm where the line between myth and reality was as thin as a shard of ice. In the sagas recited in mead halls and carved into ancient stone, the polar bear's valor was immortalized, a testament to the unyielding strength of nature and the eternal flame of hope that burned in even the coldest of hearts. And so, beneath a sky eternally painted with the hues of twilight and the shimmer of distant stars, the legend of the polar bear versus the frost giant lived on. It was a saga of sublime tragedy and fierce defiance. A narrative that celebrated the beauty and brutality of existence in a world where every living creature was destined to face the inevitable encroachment of winter's relentless grasp. The polar bear, scarred yet unbroken, remained a symbol of nature's eternal resilience, a reminder that even in the shadow of colossal adversaries, the flame of life burns with a light that can never be truly quenched. In the end, whether the polar bear's fangs could fully penetrate the giant's icy defenses or whether the frost giant's frozen weapon would ultimately crush the indomitable spirit of the wild remains a mystery woven into the tapestry of ancient lore. What endures, however, is the echo of that epic clash, a resounding affirmation that in the frozen realms of Norse myth and Viking legend, every struggle, every sacrifice, and every defiant roar in the face of destiny is a hymn to the unyielding spirit of life. Thus, as the northern winds continue their ceaseless song across the barren, icy expanses and the auroras flicker like ghostly beacons in the endless night, the memory of that extraordinary confrontation endures. It is a tale that inspires both awe and sorrow, a saga that reminds all who hear it that even amid the overwhelming might of ancient gods and colossal giants, the raw, unbridled force of nature, embodied in a lone, courageous polar bear, can defy the inexorable pull of destiny and kindle a spark of hope that burns bright against the eternal winter. In every gust of wind, in every drifting snowflake, in the deep, resonant silence of the frozen night, the saga of the polar bear and the frost giant is told anew, a timeless reminder that in the harshest, coldest corners of the world, the legends of old live on in every heartbeat, in every whispered prayer to the ancient gods. And as long as the north endures, so too will the memory of that epic clash, etched forever into the cold, unyielding stone of time.